Moving to Pennsylvania after 71 years of active UU life meant leaving affiliations and friends, but UUCY was a welcoming beacon 17 years ago. I found here a wealth of new friends and myriad ways to serve, keeping me fully occupied. Committees, 4 board years, choir, directing pledge drives, RE, auctions, and continuing to abide with you, all of you. Our congregational mission is one of spiritual transformation, of work for a more just and equitable world, of education and engagement for people of all ages. We welcome you, whether it is your first time with us or whether you have been with us for weeks, months, or years. It is our practice to light a chalice at the start of each of our gatherings as a symbol of the living tradition of Unitarian Universalism. We also invite everyone at home to light a candle as we share our chalice lighting words, which were written by Marcus Garvey. A people without the knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. Many people suffer from lack of things that most of us take for granted, things we don't often think about, like food to eat, keeping warm in a safe house. This short play is about Breed of Kildare in Celtic Ireland. She lived centuries ago. Her father, Dubh Toch, was a powerful nobleman and landowner in Kildare. At this time, in these centuries past, a few wealthy men owned huge fields of fertile ground. The poor often worked for the wealthy, but they had to live away in the hills where they tried to grow food in bad, rocky soil. One year, when their crops really went bad, these poor people did not have an onion or a carrot for their supper. Breed, a loving and thoughtful daughter, turned to her father.
Father, the harvest is grim this year, and the peasants really need your help.
Oh, Breed, I'll think on it. But in truth, if the people would only work harder, they could surely fend for themselves. Could surely feed their families.
Father, I've been waiting and watching for a few weeks now, and it's all become worse. The peasants have no food. They are eating shamrocks and grasses and lichen from the great rocks.
Now, Brahid, don't forget your place and get pushy. Why is it that you are here talking to me when you should be talking to the peasants about what they can do for themselves? I've no time for this. Now, be gone with you.
Another week has passed, Father, and you have still done nothing to help. And now the children are starving as their parents have been. I demand you give land to the poor.
Well, Brahid, it couldn't be all that bad. You don't look to be starved yourself, or nor lacking for warm clothes. I think of that warm white cloak that you have. Let it not be said that I'm a stingy man. Here's what we shall do. You go out to the fields, choose any spot on that vast plain, spread your white cloak on the ground, and the plot that it covers, I'll give to the poor.
Tax-free?
Yes, tax-free. But don't ask for anything more.
All right, Father, and thank you for your generosity.
That day, Breed and her 3 sisters went out to the very center of the fertile plain. Now, you in the audience must picture this in your mind's eye. The girls faced one another, and each took a hold of a corner of the white cloak.
All right, girls, pull it taut. That's right, nice and tight. Now take a step backwards. Aaron, take a step back again to the north. Maeve, you take another step back toward the south. Eton, please take a step once to the east. I will move back to the west. Keep the cloak taut between us. All right, keep walking. The cloak will grow and expand as we hold it tight and keep moving back towards the edges of the plain.
That late afternoon, as usual, Breed's father went up to the tower window to look out and survey his land.
By all that's good and worthy, is that snow on my fields? But the rocks are snow-free. The cloak, there's providence at work here. Brahid, I see you down on the walkway. Brahid, have mercy. I'll keep my word, dear daughter. The whole of the plain belongs to the poor, and I'll throw in 100 bags of oat seed that they might prosper by it.
I see you at the window, Father. That is fine for tomorrow, but what will you do for today?
For today? Why, a feast for today, a feast for all.
What sort of feast, Father?
Well, of course, a feast of stews and roasts, of compotes and mashes, and stuffings and jellies and cakes.
And bags of food to take home?
Why, of course, bags of food to take home.
Very well then, I'll spread the word.
Aye, Brahid, I'm sure you will. I don't mind saying that if you spread the word as efficiently as you spread your cloak, not a soul will miss this feast.
Portions of this reading are attributed to the Reverend Dr. Susan Frederick Gray, President of the Unitarian Universalist Association. In the recent past, Unitarian Universalists voted to pay special attention to learning our history and to rethinking Thanksgiving. Historically, Unitarian ministers were instrumental in creating this U.S. holiday, and the Pilgrim and Indian pageant tradition that roots the holiday in an historically inaccurate and harmful colonial narrative. We must also recognize that the early Unitarian settler congregations may have had a role in the genocide of Native Americans. Our knowledge of the wrongs of the past and the realization of the unearned benefits that inevitably come from those wrongs, it might help us to build true, lasting, and more authentic relationships both now and in the future. We must recognize that today the Native Americans are among the poorest minority people in the United States. So, aligning with the Poor People's Campaign helps us rebuild relationships based on economic security and climate justice that will help to bring full citizenship to minorities. There are many, many ways to connect in gratitude and celebrate the abundance of the Fall Festival as a community without celebrating an ahistorical colonial origin story.
I know we're all anxious to hear Reverend Carla. Just a brief introduction to the homily. You'll hear Reverend Carla talk about an interfaith spirit that drives the Poor People's Campaign movement. She frequently speaks about our differences, the importance of finding strength in them. This past Tuesday evening, Reverend Jen, Reverend Carla, and other faith leaders gathered for the first time in 3 years in person for an interfaith Thanksgiving service at Temple Beth Israel. They shared experiences that exemplified the moral narrative that Reverend Carla speaks of in her homily. This morning, I invite you to listen to Reverend Carla with an open heart. Her message is gentle, empowering, but it is a call to action, a call for a moral revival.
Greetings, friends. For those of you that I'm just getting to meet for the first time, I'm Reverend Carla Christopher. I've been here in York as an activist and an advocate for almost 15 years, whether it's through the arts, as a poet and an educator in our schools and our library systems, as a community organizer with healthcare as a human right, or LGBTQ organizations, or whether it's as part of religious and faith-based organizations as an administrator. The wonderful thing about all the different types of work that I've been blessed to do in this community is that I've been exposed to so many wonderful people, like the many friends that I've made at UUCY, and also the number of people in our community that have different gifts and different talents that I've seen become so necessary to making peaceful but powerful change. There are a lot of things that I know that we share together, things that we want to fight for and ways that we want to help support our community's most vulnerable. But there's one in particular that I'm here to talk to you about this week, and that's the Poor People's Campaign, a moral revival. As many of you know from following Reverend Dr. Barber and Liz Theo-Harris, the Poor People's Campaign is not new. It actually started in 1968 because the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and the people that worked with him recognized that there was a separation that pulled systemic racism and people living with poverty and a militarized government. And they said all these issues are very different things and they need to be fought individually. The revolution of the Poor People's Campaign was saying that all of these issues disproportionately affect low-income, low-wage workers or poor people. If we can unite all these groups together, stop fighting each other, stop competing for resources and buying into the narrative that there's only so much and that we have to fight each other on the bottom of the totem pole so that we can all have enough, we could actually create a moral majority where we could recognize that these tiny, tiny percentages of individuals who control the vast amount of wealth in our country are where the real injustice lies. The new Poor People's Campaign that began in the summer of 2018 and that I was blessed enough to be able to travel with and tour the country to see from Appalachia to Baltimore how poor people were mobilizing and organizing to make change in their communities. It holds all of those initial principles from Dr. King's movement. Anti-racism, unity, calling for a demilitarization of our government and of our police forces that are being used too often against the people instead of for their care and support. And yes, we also have added a new pillar to the Poor People's Campaign, recognition that climate justice, that ecological devastation is a huge contributor to poor health, to a lack of resource, and to the continued oppression of poor people. So in addition to eliminating poverty that affects humans, we also need to stop exploiting and creating a poverty of planet. Those 4 issues are the current core that are behind what is planned to be a very exciting event on June 18th in Washington, D.C. There's a large mass gathering, the first in-person gathering of this scope since before the pandemic. Why now? What are the changes that we've seen in the last 2 years? Well, we've seen the gap between those who have and those who have not significantly rise. We've seen challenges in housing, crisis in healthcare, the lack of ability to care for our elders and to care for our youth, the lack of ability to have fair access to voting, the crisis around redistricting. Here in Pennsylvania, there are amazing groups doing work just on the gift ban. The fact that there's no limit on how much lobbyists can give to a politician. And so a number of human rights bills never make their way to the floor, while the politicians who are keeping these bills from being voted on by the people are receiving concert tickets and fancy vacations. It's not a coincidence. But there are other ways to be involved. A new book has been published called We Cry Justice from Broadleaf Books. It's reading the Bible with the Poor People's Campaign, and it's a 52-week devotional and an anthology written by poor people of all different religions, different backgrounds, different cultures, different immigration statuses, ages, and abilities. So every week you can explore a different chapter and learn more about the ways that we encounter sacred texts and interpret them in different traditions so that we can understand that poverty shapes every aspect of our lives, of our laws, and of our calling. Is studying not for you and traveling and activism are not perhaps your way? That's also okay. The Poor People's Campaign is gathering creative expressions, artwork, poetry, dance, videos, and actual hard pieces of work songs for a songbook that is wonderful and available for download from their website. Using the arts to unite, inspire, encourage, and motivate. That was core in the 1960s. It's been part of our service today, and it remains a core aspect of this movement. Why am I sharing all these different ways that the Poor People's Campaign is working to bring together people of different religions, sexualities, regions, geographic, and also in what kind of home we live in, what kind of family we have? Well, because I want us to realize that every one of us has a gift or a talent that we can use for the movement. Now, the Poor People's Campaign is something I'm deeply passionate about because it is an interfaith movement, because it is focused on changing the moral narrative, that we need to step away from value being about how hard can you work, and instead being about how is your work of meaning for others. That instead of saying, how much can we push, it's saying, how much is what we are doing filling our spirits and supporting other people? Instead of valuing profit margins and something that is able to make more money and grow, are we looking at and evaluating, should something grow? Should it remain small? Should it remain intimate? Is it based in love? The Poor People's Campaign has taught me that even in my own activism and advocacy, I was asking a lot of the wrong questions, and I was spending my energy in a lot of the wrong places. This idea of a moral narrative, a way to tell our story that reflects care of other people, and how can we be doing our best for those who have the least? How can we be sharing our resources, not by trying to imagine that we're all the same, but by recognizing that if we acknowledge each other's very different realities and experiences and find ways that we can come together and work together, we can create a moral majority that will allow us to make real change. And that has been deeply powerful for me. Too many of our fusion movements or our moral movements don't allow space for me to be a Black woman with the perspective of a Black woman, or an LGBTQ person. Being a member of the LGBTQ community is an important part of my culture and my identity. It's valuable to me to be a Gen Xer or a woman of middle age, and I carry many of my Southern traditions, my Midwestern roots, and my East Coast habits. I don't want to give up the things that make me unique. That is where I draw my resilience, my power, my joy, and my personality from, the same way that I'm also a poet and an artist, a speaker, and an activist. Can we create a movement that celebrates our differences, that uplifts our diversity, that allows us each to be different, to have a different perspective, but that promotes a style of interaction that involves listening to each other, centering cultural competence, using community agreements to curate brave, specific spaces that allow us to use our I statements and to tell our own stories, recognizing that other people's version of truth may be very different. Can we work on our own bias, eliminating and managing it? Can we use those core aspects of diversity, equity, and inclusion trainings and then find ways to create a moral fusion movement that uplifts our differences and still combines into a moral majority that works together for change? I believe that we can. And the Poor People's Campaign has been one of the powerful models that shows it's possible. whether you become part of the Poor People's Campaign or not, please take from this the fact that you have gifts, that whether your gifts are artistic or logistic, there is a place for you in the work of community. There is some skill and gift that you have that can be contributed to building the beautiful community in which we have equity. And if you have been part of any diversity or cultural competency movement, please remember that we are different, that it's okay to be different, that we don't have to apologize or eliminate or assimilate or pretend that our different needs, truths, and personalities aren't a huge part of who we are. Our differences are why we have strength, because what one person cannot contribute, another can. So let's uplift the different ways that we interact with each other, the different truths that we carry, the different experiences that we have, and find ways to interact intentionally, thoughtfully, respectfully, and bravely to create a shared agenda that benefits our community. I ask you to join me in a short meditation as I close. I thank you, Spirit, for bringing us together in this space, whether in our own homes, in a space of sanctuary, through our phones, our computers. Help us remember that wherever we are, whoever we are not alone, that there is strength and power in our unity, our shared sense of purpose, and that our greatest strength comes in combining our differences for a singular cause, that of equity and justice for all of us. Ashe, and every blessing to you, my friends.
As we work to build this movement, there's a sound you can't control. It's a cry for love and justice that when you hear it makes you whole. Will the circle be unbroken by and by, oh by and by? There's a better way of waiting if we try, Lord, if we try, if we listen for the Spirit in these walls to pave our way. We'll be guided by a vision, and we won't be led astray. Will the circle be unbroken by and by, oh by and by? There's a better way of waiting if we try, Lord, if we try. In these times when we are hurting, give us strength to know you're near. Help us speak the truth to power and denounce the use of fear. Will the circle be unbroken by and by, oh by and by? There's a better way of waiting if we try, Lord, if we try. songs of freedom, hymns of faith that make us strong. They're the ones our mothers taught us. Hear the angels sing along. Will the circle be unbroken by and by, oh, by and by? There's a better way of waiting if we try, Lord, if we try. There's a better way of waiting if we try, Lord, if we try.
Let us speak together our chalice extinguishing words. And if you've lit a chalice at home or a candle, feel the spirit of community as you extinguish your flame. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
In the spirit of hope and healing, may we have the courage to recognize life's blessings as we struggle to heal the wounds that shape our days. May we give thanks always, believing that even in the world's bleakest moments, the dance of life is always underway.
Well, it looks like it might be a hard road, but I'm gonna walk it with you. And I know you might have a heavy load, but I can carry some too. I will lift you up when they push you down. I will raise my voice and stand my ground. Well, it looks like it might be a hard road, but I'm gonna walk it with you. Well, it looks like it might be a long night, but I ain't going nowhere. And I know it's gonna be a hard fight, but I will stay right here. I will shine a light in the darkest hour. I will face the man in the tallest tower. Well, it looks like it might be a long night, but I ain't going nowhere. I will work, I will fight, I will strive in the name of love. I will speak, I will shout, I will sing it to the skies above. Well, it looks like it might be a perilous climb, but I will follow your lead. And I know it might be a long time until the last one of us is freed. But I will hold on tight, stay by your side. I will be with you for this whole dang ride. Well, it looks like it might be a perilous climb, but I will follow your lead. Well, it looks like it might be a hard road, but I'm gonna walk it with you. And I know you might have a heavy load, but I can carry some too. I will lift you up when they push you down. I will raise my voice and stand my ground. Well, it looks like it might be a hard road, but I'm gonna walk it with you. I'm gonna walk it with you. I'm gonna walk it with you. I will walk, I will climb, shine my light the whole night through. Because it looks like it might be a hard road, but I'm gonna walk it with you.